I guess. You know what?
Yeah.
March has been dedicated to the Bat. All right, Alan. Alan is joining me today. We're I don't know. I'm just really excited. We've been chatting about the Batman for since he's seen, at least since I've seen it, especially.
Yeah.
But since he has seen it, we've been chatting about it. So we wanted to bring it to you all. But there's a gimmick. You got to have a gimmick. It's YouTube.
Yeah. Yeah, we got to have some bait for the clicks.
Yeah, and this isn't even a negative clickbait again, because I think clickbait has got such a negative. We know what we're doing with this, but we do want to start a conversation. Is the Batman better than the Dark Knight? That isn't even just directly is one better, like, higher ranking. What's the cinema? No, I don't really even care about that stuff. Like, as films, they're both really great films. They were made in very distinct times in filmmaking. We'll get into that a bit. But I really want to get into, why do we feel this is a stronger Batman film? There's a lot of people who feel this way. It's not like we're just the two hot takes coming out of nowhere. This is almost everyone's take. But I don't think we've really all tried to figure out why. Like, we've all acknowledged this is a dope ass Batman movie. Why? Why is this better than the other? Blah, blah, blah. Why do we feel personally more connected to this backstory? Before we get into the full details, Alan, how did you feel about the Batman?
I am 100% on board with this movie. It's my favorite Batman movie. It just is. I've seen it twice now, and I've let it sink in. Didn't want any of the recency bias to creep in, and it's my favorite Batman. It just is. Top down, like.
Yeah. And I would totally agree with you. I love Batman v Superman for its half a Batman film. I love Batman Returns for its pure gothy weirdness. That's my hot take is I love all Batman movies. Even my least favorite Batman movie, it's still a goddamn Batman movie. I don't know why this character can just do that for me. I can even if I don't love it. I know you don't like The Dark Knight Rises, but it's still a
There's
movie.
things I love about The Dark Knight Rises.
There's still things. Again, Batman and Robin is a bad film, but there's times where I'm like, I get it. I love the pow bang, Adam West. I go to 66. I go to Batman Forever. I go to Mask of the Phantasm, which is a damn good Batman movie as well.
Yeah, it absolutely
these are just there's a character that works, but something about the Batman really spoke to me. I don't know if it's the goth grim aesthetic with a dark sense of humor, but that really works too. What are the little things that stand out about this to you? Why little details that you're like, ooh?
Here's the thing. There's a ton of little details, and I could be here all night talking about the little details, and I will talk about some of them for sure. But here's the thing that makes this movie work for me, and this hit me just yesterday. It is the only movie where Batman is a character. And I was sitting there racking my brain. And I'm like, you don't get this kind of character development of Batman. Like, even Nolan, in Nolan's movies, you get some human moments with him in the suit, but most of the heavy lifting is done by his moments as Bruce Wayne. And he's shot like he's not acting in that suit. Christian Bale is never acting in that suit. He's a force, he's shot and he's posed in ways that make him look imposing and badass, and that's cool and that works. I don't think that's necessarily a negative, and it obviously wasn't the worst way to go with it. Those movies, first two, really work.
And look, one of the issues is with the third one is it's a Bruce Wayne film most of the time, which isn't that great of a film when it is a Bruce heavy film.
Yeah, exactly. Especially since you can't really relate to him, giving the subject matter of that movie. That's a whole thing.
Well, no, that relates to this one. How someone tweeted about it. How Seth Rogen recently. How do we relate to this guy with a butler still in this movie feels the most relatable? Like, especially in our eat the rich era that we live in, we still all found a billionaire character and went, because people still started turning on Tony Stark late in the MCU because of his billionaire-ness. Now we're like, oh.
This movie doesn't shy away from that, though. That's one thing that I really like about it. I got to get to that in a second. But no, like, Robert Pattinson delivers a performance in that suit. He has so much character. Some awkwardness. There's so much thought that goes into that. Like I've listened to so many interviews with him, more interviews I listened to with him. I'm just like, this dude got it. Like he really
He always
he
has.
went for it.
If
Like
you go back and watch his Twilight press junkets, he
mm,
got one the hate. Like he's great. He's a great interview with characters. I think he's a fun actor, and we really needed him for Batman because I agree with you.
yeah.
He added so much.
Yeah, but like, yeah, so much thought went into like the every nuance of him being in that suit, and I don't think that anyone has put that much thought into like how Batman interacts with the people around him before. Like the whole thing, him saying like he acted like a shaman, like kind of ignoring and drowning out the police in that first investigation scene.
Yeah, to the
And
point where
like,
he doesn't know he's a big imposing figure. It's that one where he's just like
yeah,
invading that dude's personal bubble, and the guy's like,
yeah,
anyways, I'm moving
yeah.
now. Like those moments, I don't think he understood, or if he does understood, he's just like, I'm above all of you kind of
Yeah.
thing.
But like his Bruce Wayne performance is his Batman performance. They are one and the same, and he gets that. Like they went against like we have to have another side of Bruce Wayne thing here, and I think they'll get to that.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. But just them being one and the same here is just a brilliant choice. Like, and all of his acting is pretty much done in that suit.
Mm-hmm.
So
like
that's
Bruce
the
moments,
main
though.
three. Yeah, I
think,
do too.
I think people have really kind of not loved his Bruce, and I like it because we don't really get to see the messy couple years. Again, I always compare him to what I liked about that show Dexter. Is Dexter trying to figure out how to act like a normal person? And sometimes Bruce, I think, but between trauma and the training that he went through to get to this point, I think he forgets to be a human sometimes. And I love that we're seeing those early days of like, oh yeah, I should like smile. It's again with Patrick Bateman from American Psycho. That's kind of why I love that Christian Bale connection there, because it's like he has to remember like, oh, I have to smile in front of people to seem like a normal person. Bruce needs to do that, and I love that he doesn't know that yet, and he's working on it. He, wears sunglasses in public because he's a weird vampire man.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, we had that concept touched on in Batman Begins, but we didn't delve into it, which is a perfectly reasonable choice for what they were going for in those movies. But for here, like, it just dwells in that space where he doesn't know that a man of his status should be seen out and about, otherwise it raises questions as to what he does with his free time.
I still think he's going to be a fairly reclusive human being. I don't think this Bruce is going to be at every party. I think kind of like Ben Affleck's. They gave it that little thing where like he doesn't always show up to parties, but when it does, it's like, oh shit, Bruce is here. Like some billionaires are like that. We're also changed our billionaires of 2022, 21 kind of vibe, where these guys aren't always out to every, the Zuckerbergs and the Bezos. They're fairly private-ish dudes, and I think that's the style we're going to go for here. I mean, look at Falcone. He's a big reclusive character in this, and that's also how mafioso men have changed. That this movie really does reflect. That's kind of why I like seeing Batman in every generation kind of thing. Is look how we handled the '80s mob crime world in the Keaton ones, to how we were with Nolan's, to where we are now. This feels very classic mob, but old mob as well, or with new mob vibes as well.
Like it does give that a modern take. It gives it a bit more believability, which is thankfully not necessarily what this movie is going for. My favorite thing about this movie is that, and I've said it to you and I've said it a couple times, is it built a world, it built a Gotham where Batman stories should happen, not one like Christopher Nolan's where it's the real world where we're going to find a way to fit Batman stories into that, which again, it's a good take. Those movies work. This is not, you're not going to catch me shitting on at least the first two Nolan movies. I love those movies, but this is the take that I've been waiting to see from a Batman movie, where you do have that grim and grittiness of that detective, detective Batman living in a grim and gritty world, but it's also very much a comic book world. I
Yeah,
like comic books because they're comic books,
and let me poop on Nolan a tiny bit since you won't. No, I'm just kidding. I really dislike the Dark Knight films going away. I don't, just a little part of it, because they feel afraid to be comic book movies.
Mhm.
Same way I felt with Tenet sometimes felt scared to be the cheesy 90s movie that it was on the inside. There's something
Yeah.
about Nolan's work that I always feel like don't mean camp in the literal sense. There's a part where Nolan feels afraid to look stupid or
Yeah.
afraid to look less than prestige.
Yes,
And
which is and you can't avoid looking a little stupid when you're making a Batman movie. So when he does, it cracks a little
yeah,
bit.
I can
Like the
compare
bad cop dialogue and things
Oh.
like that, it cracks it a little bit. As we're here, like if you get some like bad cheesy dialogue in this, it doesn't matter because you're there. You're in a world that feels like it can bend a little bit, it's a bit more pliable. You can let some cheese in, as where the Nolan movies feel very straight laced, which is why one of the many reasons Rises doesn't work for me, because you're still in that world, you're still in that very grounded world, and everything that everyone's saying is stupid in it. So the whole thing kind of just cracks until it crumbles.
Actually, you know what? Tom Hardy's Bane would work really good in the Matt Reeves universe. That's a camp character. That is again, tonally, he does not work for that movie. Here, I would love when he's like, oh, what a beautiful voice at the football game. That is something one of Matt Reeves's weird villains is going to say. Like, I love that. No, and that's a big thing, is I want my comic book movie to feel like a comic book movie. It's why, as much as people shit on a Snyder movie, he makes comic book movies. He goes for the more Frank Miller and or event style comic books, which I've seen 1,000 times now. I've seen 1,000 Frank Miller adaptations, and I've seen 1,000 let's do, the big grand 12 comic book arc story. I'm done with these. I kind of like that's the stuff we're leaning to with some of the Marvel stuff. I think that's why Moon Knight might be a successful series for them, because it doesn't feel like the end of the world, kind of story. It's just like, let's just watch a weird guy do weird stuff. I don't think people a lot remember the first X-Men film that Brian fuck this guy, made, really feels afraid to be a comic book movie. He leaned into it in the second one and third one, but that first one mocks so much of the cheese. It starts with the Holocaust. Oh, like, again, that movie's so trying to be a serious film, and he loses that later on. I mean, Days of Future Past, I love it because it's a comic book movie.
Which is goofy, because that one's the one where he turns the Statue of Liberty into a mutant machine. But yeah, no, I agree. Again, that one, it had a reason to be ashamed of being a comic book movie.
Well, it was coming, and same thing with Nolan's in a certain way. Nolan's movies come right after that Fantastic Four movie from Marvel. Right after, look, I love the Spider-Man movies, but they were a bit cheesier, fun movies as well. I really think he was trying to direct himself away from the pop culture zeitgeist for what comic book movies were, where Matt Reeves has that luxury to not have to do that. There's nothing. Maybe we are in a superhero fatigue era, and maybe that's why we like this feels like a graphic novel, maybe not a comic book exactly. I think it's interesting. Matt Reeves doesn't have to fight against anything. He just had to make a different type of film, and that's why I know you're not the biggest fan of it, but that's why I think Logan worked. Logan didn't feel like everything else, and Joker,
I'm a perfectly
things
fine
like
fan of Logan, and just didn't like it as much as everybody thought.
I know everyone hyped it, but that's why I do think these ones that do stand out. We both have spoken not greatly against Joker, but again, it was trying to do at least something different. The Batman is doing something different, but not trying to run away from its roots of this is cheesy shit that we're adapting. Like, we need to be weird and goofy. As much as this movie gets called grounded a lot more than I think it should. Maybe I'm trying, but I don't know the word for it exactly. It's heightened. Maybe heightened reality is a good, because there is a realness to it, but grounded is not the word I go for when I think of this.
This movie's very, very operatic. I don't think And I think that there's a narrative that like, oh, this is just grim dark Batman again. And yes, but it's a very big but. He is grim and dark. Everyone around him, not as much. Riddler, yes.
No,
but he's still
Paul
the Riddler.
Dano going before he does his rants. That was Paul Dano
he does
knows.
he does there that is a very nuanced performance because he is doing very grim and gritty things, but he is weird.
Yeah,
he is over the top with it.
Is a pure comedic character in this film. Does Nolan's film have one pure comedy character? I mean, I laugh at the Joker in the Dark Knight. He's a hilarious, like, that character has some geniusly funny lines, but I don't think he is there is not a comic relief character. Maybe Morgan Freeman gets to throw a joke or two or that, but literally
Alfred gets a few jabs, but he also has to bear the brunt of a lot of exposition and also like so much of the emotional weight because Bruce Wayne's not going to do any of that lifting.
And it's Sir Michael Caine. He's funny by being Michael Caine. But in this one, everyone makes jokes. Maybe Andy Serkis is the least funny one, actually. Like, he has the heavier lifting because, I mean, Falcone's funny. I love so much of the Catwoman dialogue. You have a thing for stray line. The stray line is just so Catwoman-y.
And then the I got don't worry, like he's like, don't throw your life away, don't worry honey, I got 9 of them, and then kicks some bitch off the roof. So good.
I like it. I think that this is, I mean, Gordon is, you pointed it out to me, the amount of times Gordon calls him man is the greatest touch they've ever added to Gordon. I don't know if that's a comic book thing, maybe that they've so I don't know where. That might just be somewhere. Jeffrey Wright.
I feel like it's just Jeffrey Wright and it works.
But then there's one time where he yells at Penguin and his bass drops and it's just like, oh, I forget Jeffrey Wright's Jeffrey Wright.
Oh my god, Jeffrey Wright's so good. Jeffrey Wright's so good.
But again, that's what we love. And I love, this is because we're supposed to be comparing movies. I like what was it, Gary Oldman and Christian Bale in the Dark Knight films. They're fine together, but we've never seen Gordon and Batman like these two. They
have a relationship. Like, this is a Gordon that's just like, I don't trust anybody but this weirdo.
Like, but then there's like a level where they almost don't trust each other because they talk about like, I don't, I've never seen your face. I love that. I think they, like you said, it feels like a relationship, a best, like that's their best friends. Sometimes you don't always trust, your best friend more than most people. You're like, I don't trust you with this certain bottle of liquor or going to this place. That's where he's like, oh God, I don't trust this man at all. But he gets him out of trouble. That getting him out of the Gotham PD.
Oh my God, I love that so much.
It's just like, I'm telling you what.
It's like, you're gonna punch me in the face. So good. It's so. I love everything about that scene. No, I've got you on assaulting an officer. You got me on assaulting 3. Like, it's so good.
What do you think of the Bat voice?
I like it because it's what it's not fully his own thing, which is fine because he does so much of his own stuff elsewhere with the character. Like I said, acts as the character and delivers so much nuance to that performance. But it's what Christian Bale started doing.
Yeah, he got comical.
If you look at Begins, he's just like, he's like I go back to that scene where he's like giving Rachel Dawes like the evidence and stuff against the crooked judges. He's like, she's like, what's the leverage to get things moving? It's unbelievable. He's putting a little gruff in his voice, but like by the end of that movie, he's he's exhausted, so he's blah, blah, blah. But like he just picks up on that again, and then just like by the end of the Dark Knight, he's like at a whole other level, and then by the end of Rise, he's barely being coherent at all. So as long as Pattinson doesn't just like continuously devolve it, then yes, this is what I like. This is what we got out of Christian Bale for the Batman voice. It's what we got out of him in Begins, and I think it's a great way to go with it. So.
It seems like what we've noticed is these little attention to details that really add to it. It's the padding out Gotham. I told you before we recorded, my biggest issue with the Nolan ones, other than the lack of the wanting to be a comic book movie, but this is part of that, is Gotham feels like a real city in a real place. As much as this Gotham is just New York City, I mean, we were talking about the Gotham Square Garden is the stupidest thing I've ever heard, but I love it so much. Like, it's so good, but it wants to be New York, but it feels like it has different characters. It's going to the Iceberg Lounge. It's going to the weird, undeveloped stuff where they have way more scenes than I thought they would at this weird high rise that's not fully built. It's little things like that though. It's Batman, that one scene where he's driving through the Times Square area and we get our tiny little Caesar's product placement, which, hey, good for you guys. No, it's those things. I really felt like this, but also I look back at the Nolan movies and I don't think we really spent a lot of time in Gotham in little areas like that, in little non-set piece areas.
Begins. We did more in Begins. That's one of my big. I do have a problem with the way he handled Gotham, because one, Begins is like, it's Chicago, like the sweeping shots are Chicago, and that's fine, but it's still Gotham. They built the Narrows on a sound stage. They added a bunch of stuff in. They've added like the train in Wayne Tower. They added all of that in to make it feel like it's a Gotham. And then in the Dark Knight, it's just Chicago, which I think worked for the Dark Knight. I think it worked for like the dealing with like a bunch of public servants, dealing with like the politics of them fighting crime and dealing with Batman. I think that really worked. And then inexplicably it changes from being very Chicago to all of the establishing shots are now just New York, because fuck you. And then like some streets in Pittsburgh, and it's like,
there's a consistency here with the different locations. The only thing that gets weird is I want to see more of it. That area near Wayne Tower seems so interesting, and like it's that one scene where he's driving his bike early in the beginning. We see really I want to spend more time there. It seems like, again, he's going to be the high highs, and I think there's lower lows that we haven't even seen in Gotham. And now we are doing something different with Gotham, with the post-apocalypse kind of Gotham right now, with dealing with a tragedy. How do you think that's going to affect how we feel about Gotham and the stories going forward?
I hope that by the time we get to the next one, all of the actual flooding and everything, I hope that's resolved. I don't really need a story in that, but rather a story about rebuilding from that,
and all
which is where you get the power grab and you get the trauma, and you get the city is still in chaos, and then the crime lords are coming in. That's what I'd rather see. I don't want to see I've heard people be like, oh, you can do No Man's Land here. It's not really that.
No, there is a Scott Snyder version of this No Man's Land kind of story that this feels very Scott Snyder influenced. There's a lot of his work in because I think they're definitely going to do the Joker with his face eventually. That's got like that era of him. It feels like that more modern-ish era of what we're doing, and he does have a version. I also curious of, I think he also has a Mr. Freeze story in a situation like this, because Matt Reeves has spoke about wanting to use Mr. Freeze. I think the perfect way in is the flood messed with his wife and he's angry at everyone because of it.
See, that's one of the things. I was having a discussion with a buddy of mine. It's like, where it's like, this is very much a Gotham where you can have so many villains and it'd be believable, but there might be some that are a bridge too far, and like maybe a man with an ice gun isn't necessarily built out for this.
But look how we've redid Riddler and making him feel like Riddler, but not. I think there was a way of doing the suit and everything. Also, my pick is Mads Mikkelsen. If we're gonna do a Mr. Freeze,
my pick for almost everything is Mads Mikkelsen. So
good. Okay, good. Yeah, that is true. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I can see that, because again, I love Poison Ivy. I don't think she could work in this universe. I don't think
you could do eco-terrorist, but not necessarily she's growing plants out of out of the sides of buildings and stuff.
But that's also what we were just saying, that we like the comic bookness of this. So I would like him to avoid characters like that where he would have to change very Nolan-ish. With Bane, it's a good example of the changes to Bane is so dramatic in that movie. And this one, I actually think we could get a traditional-ish Bane in this with our mysterious green liquid that
Yeah.
no one knows what that is. I've seen people do op-ed pieces on the internet already of what the hell is the green stuff.
It's venom. It's very or a proto venom.
Yeah.
Because it's very green, and the venom started in the comic books with the Denny O'Neil graphic novel. Or I don't know, remember if it was multiple parts or a full graphic novel, but Batman getting addicted to it as a performance enhancing drug. So yeah,
again, and that's something
that
believable here. We've never really had a Bruce of like all he has to do is get his ass whooped one time and going, okay, I need to be a little bit better, a bit stronger. There's so much we can do with this character. I know they want to do a trilogy. I hope Pattinson wants to do this for as much as we got Iron Man's. I would like to see him in other versions. I don't know if we'll ever expand a universe here. I don't know. I really like this universe. I really like this world. I hope a trilogy is satisfying. If it is, Matt Reeves did good with his Jurassic or his Apes trilogy. I actually liked his 2 films he directed were so good.
Yeah, I haven't watched those yet, but I've heard that he did very
and
well.
And Cloverfield is one of my favorite. Like, I mean, 2000, that movie, I was into the viral marketing. Matt Reeves, you've had me for a while. Had me for a while, my friend. So
yeah, I remember the viral marketing. That was a good time. That was a good era for viral marketing.
Yeah, and
because you had the Dark Knight one as well, which was
but also people haven't realized he's done it with the Riddler with this film. There's that
Yeah,
Ratanalada.
the Ratanalada. Yeah, somebody sent me that yesterday, and I was like, I gotta dig into this because it's not like was that leaked beforehand, or is that just something that
because when I saw the film a bit early and I went to the website, it was early website where it was just kind of like come back later. And it's been building. The website's so good, and again, that's little things about this movie.
I gotta dig into it. Yeah.
I love that they've tried a lot with this film, with the characters, with the things. What are you expecting from at least specifically Batman in these films? What do you want to see going forward to help it grow as the best Batman series? Where can we go to keep that feeling or to further that feeling?
I do want him to have continual growth as a character. I don't want him to just be stagnant or get beat down. I like my Batman. That's my favorite thing about this movie is it ends with him being like, vengeance and anger. That's not enough. Like I have I give these people hope, and like that's wonderful. That's so much my Batman.
So beautiful.
It is.
When that woman at the end doesn't want to let go of him,
it's so good.
It's heartbreaking, especially comparing it to that first man who sees him, who's just like, please don't kill me. I don't think anyone would say that to Batman after this now. I think people would still be like, oh shit, okay, but like I don't think they're scared of him. I love that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just got so many good moments with that, and that's what I want. I want more of that, because Batman, to me, I think the thing that I think that everyone gets wrong about Batman, even in the comics now, is that he is still defined by his trauma. He's still tortured by the death of his parents. No, he's not. He's so good at everything. Like he is, I wouldn't say past it, but he has grown from it. Batman is not a tortured character. And that's like, he has moments of being tortured. Yes, absolutely. There is deep trauma there. Clearly, that's the point. But he is not eternally tortured by the death of his parents. He's not, and that's one thing that like
he has like a toxic relationship with a clown. Like the parents shit's in the back right now. Like it's there, but like
he's got a lot of bad going on. But like his thing is that he rises over it, and he is like a symbol of hope. He's not just this constant and dour thing. He is a hero. He's not an anti-hero. I saw an article from somebody calling him the perfect he's not an anti-hero. He's a hero.
But
that's the point.
When we spent years making him the Punisher with a weird mask. That's been the problem. And now
this is what he is.
This is a first Batman where he's a symbol of hope. He's scary. Again, Batman's supposed to be scary. The idea of him, the beginning of this film is a perfect example of they're scared of the shadows in this damn movie. That is
it's so good.
When he says "I am the shadows," is one of the cheesiest but perfect comic book lines I've ever heard.
We can get into the little details. I love that he's narrating, and I love that narrating is him journaling, because that's Batman.
Oh, the Batman journal, calling it the Gotham Project. I was like, there's moments in this movie. My first, oh my god, is the Riddler shot with the glasses. and I went, this movie's gonna be sexy. Like, it's when he turns the TV off and we just see the glasses, and I'm like, they just added a jump scare into a Batman film.
Yeah.
Fuck off. Great.
Yeah.
Then it's the narration. Then it's the journal.
As soon as that narration hit, I was like, I'm gonna love this movie. that 2 years of nights has turned me into a nocturnal animal. I'm like, I'm in. Let's do this.
Yeah, which then leads to the first Alfred hymn. I mean, we can break it down literally. Then that first hour of this movie, because then we go straight into the penguin fight. I love that he's like, oh, I know who the penguin. I know the penguin. The penguin. Oh, I know that. Like, I love stuff like that. It's just such a good experience, and like, they really hit so many notes. And again, there's been so many good Batman films. You just made a whole video praising Batman Forever. Like, I've talked about Batman v Superman. I've talked about all my loves of all my weird stuff, but this just hits. It might just be a really good film. I think that's where I think we always get so stuck on it's a good Batman film. It's a great Batman film. It's a damn good movie too. That score is obnoxious.
Oh, I love that
like,
score.
oh my God. It's like, it just slaps you in the face. It's
a great score. It's a fantastic score. It's my favorite Batman score.
Yeah,
it is, like,
because there's elements of Batman the animated series there. There's elements of Batman Return. There's a little bit of every Batman still in that soundtrack. But again, this does feel, I told you, this feels like a love letter. I think love letters nowadays get confused with things like No Way Home. You know, things like that with
fan servicey things. Fan service and love letters aren't really the same thing. And there's certainly a place for fan service, and I'm okay with that to an extent, as long as it's not the sum total of what you have to offer. But yeah, no, I agree with you entirely. Like, this feels like it looked at every Batman movie that ever existed, as where like Nolan's was just like those Burton ones and certainly those Schumacher ones. Those didn't happen. Yep. Let's pretend that doesn't exist. Which was not a bad move at the time, obviously. But this just looks at all of those and goes, like, that from that, and that from that, and that from that, and whole scoop from here, and then builds out its own thing with it. And then it's just like piling comic books into it too. And it's
you know what this reminds me of in that way? This kind of reminds me of, sorry people who are going to click out of the video now, The Last Jedi, in a way, where it really saw all the Star Wars around it and went, cool, I know how to make a perfect Star Wars.
We're going to synthesize all of that into something that is cohesively a sequel to all of those things.
Yep. And this feels like, again, this feels like the next line of the Nolan movies, but this also feels like it's still connected to the Burton world. Like, it feels so unafraid to reference it. Again, kind of maybe the Star Trek movies had recently been like that too, the Chris Pine ones, where it was just like, oh no, we just like Star Trek. Like, this is just all of the Star Trek that's ever existed, even if it messes up our canon, we're just doing it here. Like, and I like that. And again, we get so worried with canon and continuity and all that, where again, I just want to see a dude be like, I love Batman. Here's my Batman. That's what Reeves did.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what I definitely want out of the series. We talked about villains that could maybe go in and out of this. Robin. I want a Robin out of this.
I want a young Robin.
Yeah. Do a young Robin. Don't don't Chris O'Donnell it. I love Batman Forever, but
or Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who was again. Yeah,
I love Joseph Gordon-Levitt, but again,
those are just
the Robin thing was.
We see him, and this already shows Bruce likes. I almost said likes boys. Ooh,
he has a heart for we've seen that, like, he really feels for kids that went through something similar to what he went through.
I mean, even the younger teenager boy that he stops at from the gang at the beginning, where he lets him go, I think he sees the trauma and the tragedy in him and goes, before you, like he was saying to Catwoman, before you go down a path, go now, like, go that way. And I mean, that's what he wants to do. Again, he wants to change people. He's definitely Mr. I Can Fix Her. And I feel that's the tragicness of him, and I love him for that. I already fall,
and that's what that's another thing that, like, I don't like. Batman eternally sees the good in people.
Yeah,
like, he eternally does. That's why he does. It's not just like, he doesn't just not kill the Joker because it's his moral code. He doesn't just hang out with Catwoman because he's got a weird fetish about it. and he doesn't just take in young kids that fight with him because he's, I don't know, a full-on psychopath.
But again,
like
this is also,
and he wants people to rise above, even though he doesn't always rise above himself. I have a lot of Batman thoughts.
yeah, no, this would also be a Batman who I think, as Robin would admit, maybe adopting me and making me like a badass fighter wasn't the best choice.
Which
like,
is eternally what you get out of a Dick Grayson, and you should get the Dick Grayson that grows up to be like, this was messed up.
Like, I'm not like, yeah, I'm angry at you, but I also like, and I love that, again, the conflict. We wouldn't be afraid to deal with these things. I definitely agree. A Robin would be perfect here. I never want to see a Damian Wayne though, because I hate that character. But
I like the character, but that's you'd
that
have
would
to
have been
go on
perfect.
for a long time.
That would have been the perfect Bale one. So that would have been perfect for.
Oh yeah, they could have done that,
especially for 3. Oh my god, that would have been. I would have loved a. Here's your angry young psychopath. Deal with him. No. And again, is this Batman trained by Ross? Like, what's up with that stuff? Like, I don't know.
This Batman is trained by Alfred.
Yeah, which Alfred,
that's some Earth One stuff. Yeah, well, I think his ass getting whooped is a lot of. He's been doing this for 2 years.
I guess I did watch him literally not be able to fly out of that scenario. So
yeah, Batman or Alfred references his time in the circus,
which was interesting.
He means the British Secret Service, which is 100% a like John le Carre, like George Smiley reference, because that's only called the circus in those books as far as I know. But crazy. That's what he's referencing. Is I don't like, I watched it, I was like, I like spy novels, so I know what he's talking about, but I don't know if anybody else gets this.
I did not. I there's a part of me that felt it was more about World War II. Like, I know this from me serving, but I didn't know how direct it was, because I didn't feel he was a circus man, and he's a little too beautifully posh for that. Serkis, he's so good. That heartfelt moment in the hospital. My first time didn't love it. Second time, it's so needed. At that
first time I missed it because that was my pee break. So when I came back when I saw it, I saw the first half of it, and I missed the like second half where they held hands and stuff. I was like, that's really good.
Oh, I know. This movie's just so in love with. It's like in love with bromances and like father-ish, son-ish bondings, and like I actually believed Batman. We could talk about this forever. We should be winding down. But again, we definitely love this film. It's good. It just stands out as a perfect Batman, and we tried to explain of why. I think we can go up from here. Like, I definitely think there's still another layer to take it from symbol of hope to questioning being that symbol of hope. There's a lot we can do.
You can do a ton with this.
I am really excited. Alan, thank you so much for joining me for this.
Thanks for having me.
The Batman. We've been needing this conversation, so it's been good.
Definitely.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this wonderful, long, crazy stuff. Let me know all your feelings from the chat to the comments. Give us a thumbs up. Let us know all your Batman stuff. Subscribe, because I'm sure there's going to be another Batman stuff. Maybe we can do, or if you want to, hey, what I want to see for the Batman, sequel stuff. There's a lot we can do. Make sure you guys subscribe.
Always here to talk about Batman.
Oh, I can't wait. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Comment down below.